Probably not following the dress code here.
Hey everyone, we will be starting shortly. Okay, I'm looking at myself. Okay, are we ready? It's not working. No, I've got it. As soon as he's up, then let me know when you're up. Doug, I'm going to go ahead and start.
Okay.
What time is it?
You want to put
Okay.
the camera on Pam in the middle?
Okay, I called the Patton Township Board of Supervisors July 20th, 2022 meeting at 5:33 to order. Announcements. Welcome all to the new Patton Township residents, all new Patton Township residents to the Patton Township community, a place for all. Doug, is there any announcements?
Yes, the board met in executive session on July 11th. They met with the township manager, the director of finance and administration, the solicitor, and our labor council. They reviewed the state of the negotiation on the collective bargaining agreement with the Patton Township Police Officers Association.
Okay. Next on the agenda, as you are able, please rise and join the board in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, next on the agenda is additions to the posted agenda. Are there any items that the supervisor would like to add to the posted agenda at this time? Okay, seeing none, moving on. Next on the agenda is public comments. Residents, taxpayers may address the board on issues of interest to the township. Comments related to specific agenda items should be deferred until that point in the meeting. If you are attending on Zoom, please use the raised hand featured on the Zoom application and wait for the chair to indicate it is your opportunity to speak. If you are attending in person, please approach the podium and wait for the chair to indicate that it is your opportunity to speak. Please be respectful and defer from using any profanity, derogatory, or offensive language, abbreviations, or gestures during the meeting. Respect is always given by the board and expect the same in return. Public comments are limited to 5 minutes per person. Are there any public comments at this time? All right, see,
Rod, it looks like Rod Kayat has his hand up.
where's it?
Sorry, I just noticed that.
Okay. Where's it, Rob?
Rod.
Ron? Okay, you have 5 minutes, sir?
Okay, thank you. Can you hear me? Can
Yes.
everybody hear me? All right, thank you again for giving me the opportunity to speak. I'm again obviously speaking about the pickleball court and about the decision the board is making. I understand you are making that decision, and I did hear a message, email message from Dan when he said, I know I'm disagreeing with your decision, but it is what it is. Okay, I find that a little bit rude for a taxpayer. I think if that was your money, you would have a lot more research before you make that decision, because you are spending $200,000 and not really sure what are the process actually. I mean, when somebody said your own rule, you don't find that is a noise. And we are talking about 6 hours of noise. For any park, there will be noise for 6 hours. People have to come over and enjoy the park. But you are making drastic decision. You are spending a couple $100,000 for the taxpayer. And I did want to defend myself here with your text message you sent me. I also found it rude, Mrs. Rob. I'm sorry to say that. You know, people did tell me to get in touch with you, and I did call you about 5 times, and then I asked you if you don't want me to call you back, just let me know. And then you told me to refrain from calling you, and of course I did. I did not push you to be in that position. You actually chose to be in that position yourself so you could serve the public. Furthermore, I also received a message from Doug, and he said they made a decision based for the court. They made that decision based on the best of the community. I am not really sure if that's correct statement or not. There is 200 people told you they want those pickleball court here. And 3 people said they don't want it. So I'm not really sure what evidence is the best of the community when you have, based on the survey, over 200 people that said they want those court. Mr. Garcia, he doesn't really want those court. They want the tennis court back there again because they don't want anybody to come to that park. And that, I find that really offensive because parks are for enjoyment of people, you know, not for just particular people. Park, generally speaking, I'm sorry?
No, you're having a feedback from speaking. Continue, sir.
Can you hear me now, or you cannot?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, so I'll be honest with you, I would care less if you open another court or if you don't. Or what I really do care, process those decision. You know, you are spending about over $200,000. You know, parks are for the enjoyment of the people. Before you open another one and convert those to a tennis court, which we still have no idea who is going to use the tennis court. Like if there is about 3-4 people, you are denying over 200 people. The chief of the police himself indicated at the last meeting, he said they came there about 18 times. So that means at least minimum of 4 people are coming to enjoy that park. So we could do the math, like how many times they denied those people because of the location and the enjoyment of that park. So that's all what I want to tell you.
Thank you, sir.
I'm sorry?
No,
I'm sorry?
thank you. Thank you for your comments.
All right. No problem. Thank you. Thank you so much. And I just want to say, last time I was on the agenda, so I don't know what is the difference being on agenda and versus public comment when you could only speak for 5 minutes.
All right.
Representative Casey, he was there. And just to defend myself, just to let you know, I know you respond to me in the email, and you said Representative Scott was on the agenda. When Doug sent me the agenda the first time, he was not on the agenda. So it's not like I'm lying to you when I said he was not on the agenda. If Doug looked at the email he sent me, The first one, he was
Mr.
not on the
Robb,
agenda.
thank you,
so
sir.
much. Thank you so much
Is there any other comments at
Nope,
this time?
thank you so much.
All right. Next on the agenda is the presentation of public hearing. Whereas we're working on the feedback.
I can mute him, okay. He's muted now, Matt.
Okay. Next on the agenda was the request for the resolution for support of House Bill 2596. This item has been deferred until the August board meeting. So next on the agenda is public safety. The June 22nd Public Safety Report. It will be given by Sergeant Shupanko, who is sitting in for Chief Jolly. Welcome, Sergeant.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure to be here. You'll have the monthly police report in front of you. We'll start at the top. The 2021 stats are right next to our June 2022 stats. You'll see everything's kind of in line with where it was last year. 122 traffic stops for this year, for June. 36 traffic citations, 4 parking tickets, 34 criminal arrests, which is a little bit higher than it was last year. And our bike patrol was active, did 38 miles on patrol, 74 business checks, conducted a traffic stop, and a couple of vacation home checks. Among the highlights from this month for department activities, we had a 32-year-old male who was found passed out in a vehicle and had a number of illegal substances in his lap, and he was charged. A 28-year-old male was arrested for criminal trespass. That male had entered an apartment that did not belong to him. He took a shower and used the washing machine. A 30-year-old male was arrested for fleeing law enforcement, flight to avoid apprehension. This particular male had warrants out for his arrest and failed to stop for the officer that was attempting to pull his vehicle over. The subject then fled in the vehicle. The officer pursued. Eventually, some spike strips were eventually used to stop the suspect's vehicle, and those are a controlled tire deflation device that are thrown in the path of the vehicle, and they safely deflate the tire so that vehicle can't go on under its own power anymore. However, that male then fled on foot, fled the scene, and he was eventually located later in another vehicle that had picked him up, and he was taken into custody at that point. Of the 34 arrests made in June, 19 were for retail theft and 1 was for driving under the influence. Officers successfully served 17 of the 18 warrants they attempted, and they also conducted 21 vacation home checks. So a lot of people out of town in June. Under our use of force report, there's 3 incidents, but it's sort of 2 because two of them kind of run together. So of the 414 incidents that we had in June and the 122 traffic stops, 34 arrests, and 18 warrant services, we only actually used force. It was actually 2 times. The first was officers responded to a residence for a report of a female who was intoxicated and arguing with her adult daughter. Things got very tense and the female was real belligerent, so officers had to control her and handcuff her for her safety and everyone else's safety. That situation was de-escalated. Officers left, but were called back a little while later when the woman's husband came home and the situation started up again. Again, they had to restrain her and handcuff her for her safety because she was attempting to push past officers to get at her husband. And eventually that woman was taken to the hospital on a 302 petition for some mental health help. So that was that incident. And then the other incident was the one I talked about in department notes where officers had attempted to stop the vehicle that the driver had warrants out. I think 1 warrant was for state parole. He was an absconder from state parole, and then he had 2 arrest warrants from another county, so that was probably the reason he was not stopping for the police that night. When they did stop the vehicle, officers conducted what's called a felony stop, which is a tactic to safely apprehend the subject of the vehicle when that subject is determined to be a high risk. So officers did have their firearms out at that point to take that person in custody. However, he fled on foot. When he was later found later in another vehicle, Officers were able to stop that vehicle and remove him from the vehicle, but he again attempted to flee and struggled with the officers, and they were eventually able to use some physical holds and take him safely into custody without anyone getting hurt. So that was our use of force report for June. Under community relations, we're always busy in that area. Officer Schaefer and Officer Snyder participated in the opening ceremony for the Special Olympics, which is something we do every year. Officer Tuskovich, our school resource officer, and Chief Jolly conducted a security and safety assessment up at Matterville School. Looks like a Girl Scout troop got a tour of the station. Officer Schaefer helped the Bellefonte Police Department out with their annual Bellefonte cruise. It's like Officer Tuskovich did a couple other community relations by holding a spy camp at an elementary school. And then he also presented an active shooter presentation at one of the large township businesses. And then for the last week of school in June, officers were very active in the school zones during drop-off and pickup hours, and they also did numerous walkthroughs at the schools too. Under training and department activities, Detective Snyder, Officer Schaefer, and Officer Tuskovich attended tactical response team training. Detective Fedorenko and Officer Tuskovich attended a JNET conference, and JNET is the Pennsylvania Justice Network. And basically they're the governing body who, like whenever we have to access sensitive information like license plates, driver's history, or criminal histories, it goes through them. And Detective Fedorenko and Officer Tuskovich have the responsibility to make sure that we're in compliance with that and abide by all the regulations, which we are, but it is a big job for them. Our two newest officers who were just hired late last year and early this year attended a 3-day emergency vehicle operator course, which 2 of our other officers instructed. Whenever an officer is hired here, they go for an initial 3-day an intensive driving abilities course, and then every other year, every officer attends a 1-day refresher course for that, for driving training. We drive a lot in our job, and it's always good to make sure that we're well trained on it, so that happens. Officer Tuskovich attended an advanced school resource officer training, and then again, our newest officers attended mobile field force and active shooter training. The mobile field force training is a large training that's conducted amongst all the area departments for if there's ever a police response needed to like a large scale event or a large disturbance or something like that. That's what mobile field force training is. So it's
That'd be like riot response.
it would be like if there's a riot control, that sort of thing. And then Chief Jolly, as usual, busy, not just with his usual personnel and administrative stuff, but he attended numerous meetings and conferences. And it looks like he was the guest speaker at the Happy Valley Business Association lunch. There's one thank you note in the report for a young lady whose car caught fire at the Kohl's parking lot, and she was appreciative of the response from the police and the fire department that day. And then we have our call list for June. Total number of calls is 414. May was 443. Usually we see a little dip in the summer just because a lot of students go home, so there's a little bit less activity in that area. But nothing otherwise too noteworthy in this list. It runs the gamut from a porcupine in a driveway to burglaries and that sort of thing, so it's a little bit of everything. But if you have any questions on it, I'm happy to answer it. If I don't know the answer right away, I'm happy to research it and get back to you.
Thank you. Is there any supervisors that have a question for the sergeant at this time? Seeing none, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Moving on, Public Works Operations, snowplow complaint. Doug, would you give us an update?
Yeah, I'll just go back. Back in March, the board heard a complaint from a Park Forest resident about snow plowing, throwing snow on the sidewalk on Laurel Lane. There were some other issues, I think, that we've more or less resolved. At the April 13th meeting, the board received a memo or letter from the Public Works Operations Director, Ken Soder, who's here, going over how we take care of mailboxes and our standard snow plowing practices. I won't go over those practices again, but they were included as one of the attachments in your in your agenda. The board at that point said they would like to talk about it further. The resident from Park Forest had made some recommendations he thought the board should consider. So in terms of information for the board, again, as I said, is item 5A1 was the letter that was provided to the board back in April. I put together a memo, that's item 5A.2, which provides some additional information. We did go back and Public Works Operations Director did talk to his counterparts at the other municipalities in the center region here regarding how they respond to complaints about snow being thrown onto sidewalks. They all responded. They do receive such calls and complaints, and they, as we noted before, advised residents they should wait until the roads have been cleared to the curb line or plan to clear walks more than once. Again, we are the only municipality in the region who does replace mailboxes that, other than the ones that are directly struck by snow plows. We do this both as a courtesy to residents, and at the end of the day, we find if we replace them, we know that they're good sturdy posts, and we know they aren't going to get knocked down again right after, at the next snow. In terms of, I did consult with the other department heads. We sat and did a little brainstorming about what we could do that might help communicate more clearly and provide better information to the residents about snow plowing. The ideas that we came up with included, and this is probably from easiest to most take more work, not a lot of work, but more work. We can include tips about snow plowing and sidewalks in our newsletters, social media, through our website and our email services. We could provide a plowing done notice via our website, social media, and email blast that would not only give residents an idea when they can go out and clear their driveways and sidewalks, but would also coincide when people can go back and park on roads after a snow emergency's been lifted. Two other things that are more technically involved would be install GPS units with live feed. That would make location speed data available not only to supervisors, but we could make that available to the public. I know there are states that do that with their fleets, and probably some larger municipalities. We haven't really delved into the cost of that yet, but I don't think it's not nearly as expensive as it was 5 or 10 years ago. But we can look into that if the board wants us to. Another thing we could do then would probably a little less, depending on how complicated we make it or how involved we make it, but we could install some sort of dash cams in the trucks and use those to monitor or review snow plowing operations. Those could be just a record and review type of thing, or there's probably a technology out there. Again, I know there are some states that make snow plow cams available to the public too, so we could explore that as other options. I'm going to just touch on the recommendation that Mr. Mayor made. He's here also. I assume he would like to make some comments. Just note that we did talk about the challenges that might come up with if there was a change in the current policy. Those questions were up on the screen and on page 2 of the July 13th memo. I won't go through those unless we need to. If we get that far in the discussion, but there are some issues that would need to be determined about, when is it a problem and when is it not a problem. So with that, I'd ask if there's any questions from the board.
Any questions from the board at this time? No?
And then, as I noted, I did transcribe what Mr. Mayor had said at the April 13th meeting. If you'd like to make some comments, now would be the time.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Rick Mayer, 1869 Park Forest Ave, and appreciate the effort that's been shown on this matter. Yes, short of, and in 10 minutes' time this afternoon, I came up with a color-coded map, and it only covers the immediate area that I know of, and maybe that's something to further consider. So with your permission, I would like to present that to the board.
Fine.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh,
And I guess that would fall under the category of additional training or awareness for the drivers. And again, I only have the streets that I personally went out and measured. And again, it would be color coded, like Park Forest Avenue, I know is 14 foot wide from the street to the sidewalk. And rarely does any snow get thrown onto that sidewalk. So I would consider that, green. Yellow would be North Oak because that's only like a 10-foot wide from street to sidewalk. And maybe that would just be a quick visual as the driver, something of reference, short of going with dash cams, GPS. And I would be willing to map out all of Park Forest that's in Patton Township, in the immediate future.
Ready to keep this?
That's no need.
I took care of it.
Doug can take care of that. Now that we have it.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, go ahead, sir.
That's all I have
That's it?
for.
Well, thank you. Is there any supervisor that would like to comment at this time?
I would just like to,
Supervisor Whitman?
yeah, thank you. Just like to thank Mr. Mayor for bringing in this information. But I have a question. So you're suggesting that information similar to this would be provided to snowplow drivers with the intent that they would plow differently in those areas? I was a little bit confused on the purpose of this.
Would be to a visual, make them aware of the streets that can be difficult or that would be prone to the combination of snow being thrown maybe to, I don't know, I've never driven a snow truck or snow plow, so I cannot say, what the limitations are, but I don't know if it's speed related or just equipment or however it works. But yeah, that would just be, a visual to say,
Or
okay,
information.
maybe I'm on North Oak. And again, it's pretty self-evident. I think anybody could have that memorized in a short amount of time, but there's a lot more streets that in Patton Township that could be in Park Forest Village that could be color coded, of course. So yeah, it would just be an aid to the driver.
We thank you for this. Doug, when you're making notes, that's fine.
Yeah, no, that's something we could do. That's
Good.
definitely.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
We'll
Yeah, that's
we'll
really-
look into that.
And just, I have a technical question, I guess, for Doug. How would that be, could that be relayed electronically? I think it would be difficult for a driver to have a map.
Well, I'd have to work with Ken.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, fine.
Mostly, they're not going to be, they will look at them pre-season. So typically there's some turnover every year. And even with the guys who have plowed the same streets for several years, probably in November, when we start getting the equipment ready, we'll send everybody out and say, go take a run on your streets and make sure, things look, if you haven't done it before, start taking a look at things. If you've done it before, take a close look at those areas that may have given you problems in the past, things like if you're plowing snow, if you're plowing snow, the things that really ruin your day are the manholes that might stick up a little bit, or the curves that for some reason are easier to hit than other things. We do some preseason training with everybody. And part of that is to remind them to, we don't use more salt than we need because salt's very expensive. We use the salt we need, but we don't want to waste it. So that could be part of that, I would say, preseason training training or retraining, and we can work with our mapping technician, our GIS technician, and have, you know, we probably use some sort of a range of colors or something sort of like that, but, you know, where a darker color means more caution or something like that, and a lighter color would be something like that, but we can work with staff, and if the board wants us to, you know, explore any of these other ones, I think, you know, doing the tips and doing plowing done notices are pretty easy. The other ones, like I said, might take a little more effort and money, but if the board wants us to look into those, we can do that.
Okay.
And get those wrapped into budgets for next year.
Thank you, Doug. Dan, anything?
I recognize, you know, how difficult the job is for our snowplow drivers. I would suspect they're probably more cautious about damaging mailboxes because those, you know, that's a physical damage that has to be corrected. And maybe not so careful when there's an open lane on one of these narrower streets in Park Forest with no cars parked on it, and so they can go straight. And I could see why there might be a tendency on the part of the driver to maybe drive a little bit faster, which would throw the snow a little bit further, you know, on past the curb. I think, Doug, what you've done so far is commendable. I like all the brainstorming your staff have done about steps they can take. I would certainly encourage you to continue to review those. I'm not sure I would have enough information to make a recommendation on the last two, you know, the GPS monitor and a dash cam. I don't know. I would need more information before I could say, yes, go ahead and do that, or don't bother.
Okay. Doug, I just say, if you can look into that, and we'll get back to you on that.
Okay, we'll
All
work
right.
on that and get some of that stuff ready for budget. Let's get some numbers together on it.
Okay, thank you. Moving on, next on the agenda is engineering, planning, and zoning. Planning Commission report. Planning Commission member, Rich Smith.
All right, well, thank you. We met on July 11th, and we went over a couple line items at that meeting. The first thing that we discussed was how we wanted to proceed with the bicycle parking in the township. And we came to a conclusion at the Planning Commission meeting to have 21 spaces, 16 short-term and 5 long-term parking. That we went to all the Planning Commission members, and that was our consensus that we had at that point. After that, we went to a work session, we discussed some different options for the planned airport district. We had it gone over for us several different options that we could pursue. And at the end of the discussion, what is going to happen next is the township staff has laid out a plan to make these all available to the public and give them some time to see the different options for the planned airport district and get their feedback at this time. So That's all the information that was covered in July, and I will answer any questions, and, staff can feel free to say anything on any of the points that I went over to explain further. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any supervisor that has any questions? Supervisor Whitman.
I would just like to share a comment that I received via email today from Mindy Haynes, who lives in the Grays Woods development. She rides a bicycle to a particular professional building that is across the street from Geisinger and Grays Woods. And so she had a particular request for bicycle racks for parking spaces. Is that's what you were talking about? Anyway, I will forward this to you. I guess in a general principle, I guess is that the kind of information the Planning Commission is working with or would be interested in at this point? A specific request for bicycle?
The proposed regulations would only apply to new developments.
I'm sorry, so this is talking specifically about the regulation and the change in the...
For bicycle parking?
Okay, sorry about that.
Yeah.
I was a little bit confused.
Okay.
And then there's also a change in the wording, that's a different,
Yeah.
okay, I'm sorry. I apologize, Rick.
All right.
But if I might, just continuing that, and maybe this is a question for Susan Wheeler, who's also at the meeting. When we receive suggestions from citizens about the need for bicycle parking, where would we send that?
Well, if it's again, if they want to, we have the authority to, well, let me back up. We don't have the authority to go back to somebody who has an approved land development plan and change their plan.
Right.
Okay, so we can be forward-looking, and that's what the Planning Commission is doing with these proposed regulations. I would say if somebody is going to a particular building and would like to see bicycle parking, they should talk to the manager or owner of that building or that business. I think that would be the most effective thing they can do.
Yeah, let's raise that awareness. Okay, great, thanks. But meanwhile, I'll pass along that information.
Yeah, if any comments bicycle related, we can give those to Susan, and she'll keep track of those and work with the Recreation Advisory Committee as we, they will be doing an update to the parks and bike plan in a couple of years, so all that information would be good as they work on that.
Thank you.
You ready?
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Gaynor, next on the agenda is Gaynor Drive Parklet encroachment. Doug, I think that's you.
Yeah, I'll do the introduction on this. We originally began talking about this in late May. We received a letter, an anonymous letter from someone notifying us of the encroachment onto the park property. We went out, the staff went out and looked. We talked to the board at that May 25th meeting. The board at that time did agree to refer the matter to the Recreation Advisory Committee to review and recommend. We also had contacted an independent inspector, playground inspector, to go out and take a look at the items that were in the parkland. That report was attached to the recommendation letter, the memo that came from the Recreation Advisory Committee. That was item 6B.1 attached to the agenda. As noted in the agenda, the Recreation Advisory Committee is recommending that the board adopt their recommendation, ordering that all improvements in the parkland be removed within 14 days, which would be August 3rd. And the RAC also noted that they will be conducting a neighborhood survey of the residents around Gaynor Drive Parklet in that area to see what amenities the residents would like to see in there, and then they'll work with the residents to develop a couple of proposals that could be included in next year's budget for for improvements to Gaynor Drive Parklet. As part of other activities out there, we did have a professional surveyor go and locate the property pins and the property lines around Gaynor Drive Parklet. We had a map included in the agenda materials. That was item 6B.2. Besides the encroachment that main one we've been talking about behind 237 Gaynor Drive, there were also a couple other small encroachments identified by the surveyor. They're noted and outlined in red on there, and we will be contacting those residents and asking them to remove those materials and go through a similar process if need be there also. With that concludes my introduction. If there's any comments or questions from the board or questions, I'd be glad to take those now. We also have Susan Wheeler here, who works with the Recreation Advisory Committee. We have Ken Hickman, who's on the Recreation Advisory Committee with us also. And we have Ms. Maley in the audience also.
Okay, I want to hear, Ms. Maley, would you come up first? And then,
Good evening.
good evening.
It's Maylai.
Maley, I'm
Excuse me.
sorry.
It's okay. I don't know that I have a lot to add. I was under the assumption that 2 weeks. I thought that was from the date of the meeting, so probably 90% of the items have been removed. I guess I'm more curious where it's going to go forward from here
Okay.
with the the surveys of the neighborhood and such. I am curious, having built the house, 18 years ago when there was just a field behind, I'm curious, when did the township take ownership of that particular area?
Okay.
I think when the subdivision plan was created, which would have created your lot, that park lot was also created, I think. Is that correct, Susan?
Yes, it was actually developed or actually committed as parkland when the subdivision plan was put through, which I think was 2004. I know that we did the improvements in 2006 to Gaynor Drive Parklet.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So if you do decide to go ahead with a survey for, the different homes in the neighborhood for their input on the parklet, I would like to request that you make sure that that area is also included. It is a hill, but you can do a lot with a hill these days, whether it be a fence so that we're, more aware of our boundaries, or a retaining wall or something. There's just a lot of children that moved to the area over the last several years, and again, like I said before, this wasn't anything to be malicious. This was something that we just did for fun over the last couple years because for the last 18 years I thought it was woods because that's what it looks like. So anyway, I don't know if you have any questions for me, but that's, all I would ask as you go forward, that if it's part of the parklet, that it be used as part of the parklet.
Susan, we want to put you on the spot. Could you say a few words to the resident on how we really are working toward, with the residents and working together to resolve, this amicably? I know the board has already made their decision, but we also, as we're moving forward, and I hear in the future what we can do better.
Yes, well, last night at the RAC meeting, we did discuss the Gaynor Drive Parklet encroachment, but not with regard to the encroachment that we discussed last month, but rather the beginning steps of putting together a survey that we can get out to all the residents in the adjoining area that use that parkland. And the two neighborhoods that abut that area or in that immediate area would be 276 homes. So typically what we do is when we find that there's a need or an interest in discussing additional amenities or changes to parkland, the RAC and I work together on putting together a survey that we send a postcard out to all the homes in the adjoining area and ask questions about what their people's specific needs are. So we started that discussion at last night's RAC meeting, and at the next RAC meeting in August, I'll have a draft survey that we'll start to work upon so that we can go forward and try to determine what else might be able to be done with that parkland.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah, if the people have ideas that are, might be a little bit out of the box, or, you know, things that you can do on a hillside.
Yeah.
We want to get as many ideas as we can. Who knows, something may.
I would like to request too that there were an excessive amount of signs put up all around just this hillside. So now that all of the toys have been taken out,
Yeah, we'll take those signs down.
I would really appreciate
Yep.
that. I feel very singled out in that. So thank you guys. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much.
So,
All right.
I think, just to conclude this matter, the board should take action by motion to adopt the RAC recommendations, so we have a
Okay.
good record.
Can I get a motion to adopt the RSC recommendation?
So moved.
Can I get a second?
I second.
All right, discussion?
I just wanted to add a comment, observation. I was really impressed with how Ms. Malai handled the situation, which must have been stressful. And also how the RAC handled it.
Yes.
So similar to what happened earlier tonight with the snowplows. I'm proud to be a part of this township and conflict resolution. So yeah, no, thank you.
All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. Thank you again. All right, moving next on the agenda is the proposed Patton Code amendments for bicycle parking and new development. And that is Nicole Planner.
Hello,
Nicole?
everyone. So if you'll remember, we first brought the idea of making some code amendments for bicycle parking to the board. I believe it was at the February meeting. The Planning Commission had been talking about it since June of last year, and they were prepared to make a recommendation to the board. So you heard a presentation from myself and the then Bicycle and Transportation Planner, Trish Meek. After that meeting, we decided to pull the regulations back a little bit and do a little bit more outreach because of the scale that we were proposing. We wanted to make sure that we were putting forth the best recommendations possible with as little unintended consequences as possible. So in that time, we did receive some more feedback. So we have made some alterations to the draft language that would go into the subdivision and land development ordinance, which would clarify how the long and short term split between each use would be rounded. So there's some clarification in there for that. We've changed main entrance to a public entrance to further add clarification about where the bicycle parking would need to be located. We've also changed the distance from that entrance that the long-term parking could be located. And then there's just a couple other minor language tweaks. Additionally, we discovered there is some language in the I-99 overlay in the zoning chapter of our code that speaks a little bit to bicycle parking. So we are also recommending to pull that language out just for consistency so that the subdivision and land development ordinance will contain the bicycle parking regulations for the township. There was one outstanding comment that we took to the Planning Commission last week, and the Planning Commission discussed, as Mr. Schmidt mentioned in his update. So we did incorporate hotel as its own use. We did not have it as its own use originally, so the Planning Commission discussed how to handle that. So we have now also added hotel as its own use in the chart, in the draft language. So with your materials tonight, you have 4 different attachments. One is the entire July 12th draft of the bicycle parking language that we would add to the subdivision and land development ordinance. We have the amendment to the I-99 overlay, so you can see what we are suggesting to be removed. And then from the previous conversation we had in the winter, there are suggested amendments to the mixed-use overlay 2 district and just a minor amendment to some bicycle definitions in the zoning chapter. Neither of those two have had any updates since you last saw them, so those are the same as what they were before. So the Planning Commission did vote to forward this on to you for potential acceptance and to set a public hearing date. So if you have any questions or you would like to know anything further, I can try to answer that for you.
Okay, are there any questions for any of the supervisors? No?
No, I think they did a very thorough job, so I trust that all the i's were dotted and the t's were crossed.
Okay, so we're consolidating a single draft ordinance, and we're going to advise for a public hearing, possible adoption in the future meetings. So we're going to schedule a public meeting at September the 14th, 2022. Okay. I would like to take a moment to thank Nicole, and seeing that this is her last meeting with us. Nicole will be moving on, and we wish her the very best in her new position. We know she will continue to do great things in her new endeavors. We also have a small token of our appreciation for your dedication and commitment, especially to the Affordable Housing Task Force. And is there any supervisor that would like to comment at this time to thank?
Well, thank you, Nicole, for all your hard work for us. And I wish you the best. I hope your new position is, the people you work with treat you well, and hopefully like we did, as well as we did.
Nicole, if you can see, this is a small token from our board and staff and the Patton community. We want to say thank you and wish you the very best. Betsy, would you like to say something?
I would second everything Dan said, and I'm also need to express my delight working with Nicole and the sadness that I feel in not being able to work with her. But I am so happy for you, and I'm not surprised, Nicole. Good for you.
Is there any public comment at this time for Nicole? Okay, seeing none.
Do we need a motion to establish?
No.
If you'd like, or I'll just record it by consensus.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, we're all in agreement?
Yes.
Thank you. All right.
Thank you all so much. I really enjoyed working with you all. It's very bittersweet for me to be already moving on, and I really appreciate your support, and I've been happy to work with this community, and I hope to see you all soon.
All right, take care.
Bye-bye.
Next on the agenda is Capital Improvement Plan Project PW-42, Valley Vista Sidewalk from Carnegie to Sheets. Director of Engineering and Planning and Zoning, is it Alexandra?
Yes, good evening. Sorry my video is not working tonight.
Okay.
I'm down in North Carolina.
All right.
Back in May, on May 11th, I brought this back to the board to talk about surveying the public in Valley Vista Park and Park Forest. And we did survey 572 residents, as outlined in the memo that I'm sharing the screen, sorry. So, as outlined in the memo. So, there we go. Here's the information, sorry about that. So we did get a response rate of 15%. That was
Did we lose you?
I think we lost your
We lost
audio too, Alex.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Sorry. Of the 3 routes, the blue route, which connects Galen to Sheets, was utilized the most by the people that responded to the survey. The route on Valley Vista from Carnegie to Lowe's was used the second, and the route that was used the third most was the yellow route, which connects Galen to Sheets via a concrete sidewalk that's parallel to North Atherton Street. When asked if the existing roadways, sidewalks, and paths are adequate to access Sheets, about 58% of respondents said yes and 42 said no. Many residents in their comments asked for the blue and red paths to be improved. So based on the survey results, I'm recommending that we do coordinate with Sheets to bring the blue path through the woods up to meet ADA standards and look at realigning the existing pedestrian crossing on Valley Vista from Lowe's to Sheets to be perpendicular, removing pedestrians from entering the property via the driveway, and exploring the option of adding a flashing beacon to this crossing or looking at other safety measures. So with that, I'll ask if you have any questions for me.
Oh, any questions for Alex at this time?
I don't have a question, Alex, but I found it very interesting, but also predictable that the most used path is the shortest.
Yes.
And
Yes.
unfortunately, the most used path is also the most in need of repair.
Right.
Because it really is full of ruts and rocks, and I think it's a danger to unwary pedestrians in its current condition. Now, does the township have that right away, or is it our responsibility? Or,
No,
Sheets.
we do.
yeah. Alex, go ahead.
It was done.
You're breaking up.
Yeah, no, we'd have to, part of the coordination with Sheets is we would have to secure an easement through there, a public access easement. I don't believe there's one at this point, but we would do that. And then the most likely scenario is that we would construct the path, pay to construct the path, and then Sheets would agree to maintain it from there on, so.
Yeah, I would suspect that Sheets would incur some liability, and if customers are using their land and there may be an injury on it, that they'd be more than likely to agree to an easement, and especially if we're going to construct the pathway.
Yeah, we don't see a big hurdle to get the easement from them, just it's a matter of going to them and then, finding the right person in the Sheets Corporation to talk to. So, but we have a couple ends in the Sheets Corporation too, so we can
Yeah, I've
help
already
us
started
navigate through.
I've already started conversations with Sheets to see how feasible this is.
Great.
And as far as the yellow route, the changing the crosswalk, I think that's should be done as well for safety reasons.
Yeah, we talked with McCormick Taylor, or Rob Wyatt from McCormick Taylor, who's our new traffic engineer, and he even suggested maybe relocating it up to where that median's wider up there, so there might be some advantages. So we'll work with them before we get to a final recommendation on that one too.
Smart.
Great. Supervisor Whitman, do you have any questions?
No, okay, I think it's
Alex,
one
I
of
just,
those elegant solutions.
thank you for all of your hard work. I just have one question. I do know that Supervisor Magruder was talking with some of the residents regarding this. Has he reached out to you at all?
No, I haven't heard from him, no.
Okay. Thank you, that's what I needed to know. All
Sure.
right, but thank you for your report, and,
So Alex will go ahead and revise that
okay,
CIP project, and we'll be and look at, updating the costs and schedules, and we'll be looking
Okay.
at when we get to CIP discussions in October.
okay. Thank you for all of your help.
Thank you.
Moving on, next on the agenda is zoning hearing board denies variance request. Doug, who's doing that?
Alex? was
I can
gonna-
talk.
Okay, Alex.
So our zoning hearing board heard a request from a resident on Wilderness Lane to reduce the side yard setback from 30 feet to 10 feet for the construction of a new garage. Ultimately, the zoning hearing board denied this request. The information is in the agenda for your information only. If you have any questions for me, I can answer them.
I have no questions.
No questions.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Next on the agenda is the Green Light Go Grant Award for pedestrian improvement along Colonnade Boulevard.
Yes, I applied for Green Light Go funding last year to fund improvements on Colonnade Boulevard. There's some ADA accessibility concerns that I wanted to address, and also wanted to add pedestrian heads that have the countdowns, because we anticipate a lot more foot traffic after Penn Highlands is ultimately constructed. So I'm happy to say that PennDOT did award the grant to Patton Township for the amount of $70,838. And I'm asking for the board to take action to approve resolution 2015.
2022-015.
Okay. Can I get a motion to approve the resolution 2022-015?
I'll move approval of resolution 2022-015.
All right, can I get a second?
I'll second.
Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion to approve the resolution passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving on. Next on the agenda is administration. Board input for 2023 to 2027 capital improvement plan. Doug, is that you?
Yeah, again, I'm asking the board to provide any ideas they may have for projects that would fit into our capital improvement plan. There were those that were identified last year as part of our discussions about the American Rescue Plan will be included this year. But if you have any other ideas, please forward those to me. If you need help with fleshing that out and putting some numbers to it, I can assist with that too. If the board doesn't have any ideas or questions or comments tonight, don't need to do anything right now. This will also be on the agenda for August, and then typically we review the capital improvement plan in October prior to looking at our next year's budget in November.
Okay, any supervisor? It's okay for next month? Seeing none, next on the agenda is COG, 2023 Program Plan and Capital Improvement Plan.
Yeah, I always try to get it out as early as possible on this issue. There were two documents attached to the agenda, the COG Program Plan and the COG Capital Improvement Plan. If you'd like the printed copy of the program plan, I have one extra here. We can get more from COG if needed. So that lays out COG's, where they've been, what they've been doing, what do they plan to do for next year. It's kind of the precursor to the budget to give you an idea of where they're headed and what they've done. And then the COG CIP is really similar to ours. It includes all their larger purchases and staff additions and things like that. We will be, like I said, the Finance Committee looked at them, I believe, last week. The COG General Forum, which meets on
Monday.
the last Monday, is it? Yeah, this Monday, this coming Monday, is going to then formally recommend them to the municipalities for review. Your review will occur on August 17th, and they want comments the next day. So that's why I try to get out early and see if you've had a chance to look things over. I really haven't had a chance to look through these documents yet, but I would encourage you to take a look at them if you're interested. If you have questions or comments, feed those to me. If we have questions, we'll try to get clarifications from COG. And then, as I said, we will do a more formal review on August 17th. Prior to that, COG will provide us a a matrix where they will go through and list the main issues where they have questions, which are usually the first few pages of the executive director's letter, maybe not this year, but that information will come from COG. There'll be a set of, as they have in the past, questions seeking input from each municipal board or council on the various items. Larry and I will go through those and provide some guidance on what we think, and then we'll finish filling that matrix out at the August 17th meeting and make sure Dan has that information for the August 18th Finance Committee meeting. So if there are any questions about COG, financial planning?
Can we get a copy? Dan, would you like a copy of it as well, or a hard copy?
I have actually, I have both of them already.
You do?
I
Okay,
don't-
can I get it? I want you to have that to review, but can
I
I?
have an extra, I have one
Okay.
extra here.
Okay,
So, and then if you'd like a copy of the CIP, I can print those out too. They aren't quite as big.
all right.
So
Well, thank you.
I will make those CIP copies available.
All right.
Madam Chair, may I make a
Yes,
comment? The Finance Committee did review these at our last meeting. I would just make two recommendations. One is, it took me about 2 hours to review the program plan and the CIP. So I think your input is really important, and so my request is, in the next couple of weeks, if you could schedule a 2-hour block of your time, put your favorite beverage there in close reach, and just go through it. And if you have, make notes. If you have questions and you need answers, you can call Doug, you can call Larry, you can call me.
Okay.
So that we're not, trying to get, all these explanations on the day of our meeting on August 18th, 17th, whenever our meeting is. 17th. And the second thing is, if you remember last year, the Parks and Recreation Agency, run by Pam Salakangas, had requested funds to purchase a food vendor truck that COG would own and operate, and, and mainly for the customers or the clients or citizens who are using the pools, the two pools, but could be used for other events as well, tournaments and that sort of thing. The General Forum requested that, or referred this request back to COG and said, flesh it out, give us a business plan. This is just asking for money to do this, and we didn't have enough information. And I was one of those who said, you haven't given us enough information. So they did. The Recreation Parks Agency, in consultation with their finance director and the executive director, put together a very detailed 30-plus page business plan. And I found it extremely informative. So the program plan has sort of a summary, executive summary of that. It's very short because of the nature of that document. But if you're interested, I would suggest you go to the COG website and download the business plan, the proposed business plan. I was impressed. I was very impressed. It seemed to me they researched everything and answered just about every possible question anybody would want to ask about this proposal.
Right.
Cool. Thanks for that.
Thank you. Good, Dan. Supervisor Whitman, do you have any questions?
No, I just thank you, Dan, for that
Thank you.
tip.
Okay, moving next on the agenda is, let's see, pension plan audit report. Director of Finance, Larry Pager, will give us an update. Larry?
Good evening, good evening. I am sitting here with my favorite beverage.
We're not asking.
Back in February, from February to April, we had an auditor in from the Auditor General's office, and they audited 2018, 2019, 2020, and 2021. Both our non-union pension plan and our police union pension plan. So in that, they check various items on the pension plan to make sure that we're following all the necessary payment, the MMO, the municipal minimum obligations and such. There was one finding, and that finding was that we were late in a couple of our deposits. The state gives us money to deposit in our pension plan. We have 30 days to deposit it, and we were late by, I think in one instance it was a week, in another instance it was a couple weeks. So we only have to be aware that we cannot do that again for the next audits. So I'm, diligent that we'll make sure we hit before the 30th day, to deposit the money in the pension plans. So I will take any questions anybody will have on these audits.
Okay.
I'll ask the obvious
Okay.
question.
Yes.
Why were we late?
Because we have to, when the money comes in and we put it into the pension plan, we have to allocate it on. And I was late in getting the allocations to the accountants to put it in to the proper accounts. So it was all my fault. I'm not blaming anybody but myself. But we'll make sure that I get that done on time.
Yeah, I'm sure you don't want to have next year's audit report pointed out.
No, I don't want to do it again. That's for sure.
Okay, thank you, Larry. Supervisor Whitman, do
You're
you have
welcome.
any comments?
No.
All right. All right, Larry, thank you again.
You're welcome.
Moving on, next on the agenda is the consent agenda. Doug?
We have 5 items, a resolution for a cost-sharing agreement for a consultant for records management system procurement for police, revised resolution for fee change for zoning hearing board fees for engineering, planning, and zoning, a contract award to repair traffic signal at Walmart Plaza and Atherton Street, and the minutes and voucher reports from June.
Okay, is there any supervisor that would like to discuss, vote on, or remove any items on this agenda?
I would like to move that we accept the consent agenda.
All right, can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion passes. Thank you. Moving on, next on the agenda is the manager's report. Doug, you're up.
Thank you. Under correspondence, there was some information provided from DEP about public hearing they held in Benner Township about the PFAS groundwater pollution issue that they're dealing with. We have been keeping Patton Township residents who live in that area apprised of things that DEP is doing on this issue, and generally we're sending, if anybody has questions or concerns, we're sending them to DEP because they are the experts on the issue. There was a thank you for tree removal from the Pantops HOA. Just one. So this was Ken and our mechanic, Troy Miller, went out and took care of a tree because they were the ones available at the time. So above and beyond. And then the zoning officer has provided the development update for June. If there are questions, I can address those. Under announcements, the state is starting to ramp up information they're providing on the spotted lanternfly. It has been found in Center County, so we are now part of the quarantine area. With the update, I also had provided some additional information under item 14 about information that can be shared and how to get rid of the spotted lanternfly. They're, quite frankly, if you see one, kill it, is the advice that the state is providing to everybody. So they are, you know, the next pest of concern. They eat everything. That's probably 100% true, but they don't discriminate like gypsy moths and only eat on a few things. They eat many, many things. So we're trying to abate them as well as we can. Next item under announcements, oak wilt. We found a new rather large infestation around the area of Scotia Road and Circleville Road. I have I think it's 5 trees that are infected, and we're going to have to inject quite another 100-some trees around them. So I authorized Bartlett Tree to go ahead and take the sick trees out. That's the first thing we need to do, and they'll get started on that fairly soon. This covers 3 or 4 different properties there in that area. And then we'll be taking bids to do the injection work. So it's...
Doug, were these trees all on private property?
Yeah, these are all on private property. Yeah, it was... Bartlett Tree had been working with some of the property owners in there, and they kind of found it, and it's probably been in that area for 2 or 3 years, and it's kind of back in a woodlot. But it's clearly, you can see where this thing has been growing outward over the last few years, so we really need to contain it and see if we can get, take care of it right there. It'll be $20,000 to take the trees out, and probably be another $20,000 or so for doing the injections. But at the end of the day, there aren't any other alternatives, and if we don't take it, it'll eventually infect every oak tree, in the area, and that's the last thing we want to happen for Patton Township. Yeah. So,
Can follow-up question? Can these areas of infestation be spotted from the air aerially, like with a drone camera or something like that?
Yeah, we'll probably. There's some other areas that we think we need to check. We talked about we've been working Bartlett Tree Services. We work fairly closely with them. They've got people in their staff. Bartlett's a nationwide, and they've got, they have the oak wilt experts in the country on their staff. We've talked about trying to do some of that. We'll have to continue talking about it. And one of the odd things about oak wilt, it can show up from probably as early as June to as late as the end of August or even September. So it's not like something you can do once, and it's kind of you need to catch oak wilt in probably about the 30-day period between where the tree gets infected and to where it's pushed off all its leaves, and you can't really. It's more difficult to confirm a case. All these cases we're working with oak wilt, we've confirmed that these are actual oak wilt cases. They've all been laboratory tested. So our new zoning officer, Nicole Harder, is getting quite the education in oak wilt this year. So she's learning new stuff.
Doug, I have a question.
Sure.
How are we getting information out to the residents that they might be the eyes and ears to get you that information?
That's something we probably need to ramp up again. I know if you've lived in Park Forest for the last 20 years, there's signs all over Park Forest that talk about oak wilt. This is outside of Park Forest now, so I think once we get through taking care of this infestation, we'll do some more public education. Mostly, we get these reports from the arborists themselves. So I think these ones we've got from Bartlett, people like AP Tree Service, Andy Moore, they all keep a good lookout.
Oh, okay.
Typically, the way we reward them when they bring one to us, we pay them to take it out, to remove the tree. So we will ramp up, I think, those things again. I think we need that area out there by Circleville and Scotia Road.
Yeah, I'm looking at new residents that
Yeah,
might have
yeah.
just bought a house.
Yeah, so we'll work on that too.
Okay.
And then last, our website did go live on June 28th. Everything worked just like it was supposed to.
Yay, Sophie.
Yay, Sophie, yeah.
Yay,
So
Larry.
Sophie has now has a list about this long of all the other stuff that everybody wants to get back up on the website. So again, if you have ideas or suggestions for things that you think should be on our website, funnel those to Larry,
Oh,
and then
okay.
he will get those to Sophie. So Larry's kind of doing a bit of the triage and prioritizing things for Sophie to help her.
Yeah.
So I just ask that you do that. Alex, can you put up item 9C1, the graph, the housing graph? Are you there, Alex? Did we lose Alex? No, there she is. Yeah, 9C1. No. Anyhow, the housing graph, I think I missed a quarter in March, at the end of March. But there was a little bit of an uptick in the spring. A lot of those houses were out in the Grays Point area. They've started several more there, and also in the village at Penn State, Toft Trees. But since then, interest rates have gone from 2% to 5% plus. I did provide a little additional information from a website called USA Facts, which I find interesting, talking about median single price home prices adjusted for inflation over the last 50 years. And you can see the median single family home price in the US now is over $400,000. So it's significant. And then, as noted, and we're all aware of, interest rates, inflation, interest rates were, earlier this year or last year were in the 2.5% range if you were doing refis or new mortgages, and currently they're over 5%. So there will probably be a slowdown in housing starts, I would guess, over the next few months. The public's going to have to reset their expectations about what they can afford, and I think once we see that reset of expectations, I would suspect we'll see, because there really still is, and I think nationwide there's a housing shortage, so they will continue to be pressured to build more housing, and unfortunately that's probably going to, even with the interest rates going up, I don't see that driving prices down any. The rise may be a little slower, but home prices will probably continue to go up. Lastly, upcoming events, township office schedule. We're closed September 5 for Labor Day. PA Municipal League's annual summits in Pittsburgh from 6th to the 9th. We're in the process of registering and getting reservations for everybody. And then PSATS will be having a regional conference in Boalsburg on the 25th. I don't think registration's open for that yet, but as soon as it is, I'll send something out to the board to see who might be interested. That's usually a one-day regional conference. And that's the end of my report.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Doug. Moving on, next on the agenda is the committee reports. Is there any supervisor that would like to add to their committee report at this time? I would like to start off. The executive committee met yesterday, so I will be submitting a more extensive report for our August meeting agenda. But please note, the one item that will be discussed at the general forum will be a short presentation by Fire Director Steve Baird on the need to purchase a specialized traffic unit. Due to the shortage of units and the turnover time to receive this unit, the forum will need to vote on this item at the general forum on Monday. So you have heads up. That's what's coming down the pike. All right. Is there any other supervisor that would like to add to their committee report? No?
I would.
Okay, Supervisor Whitman?
I'm actually going to, first thing I want to do is thank Larry Pigger for submitting the facilities report. He always does such a great job, and he does it essentially in my stead, so I really appreciate that, Larry.
Thank you, Larry.
And I apologize that I don't have anything written for the climate action and sustainability report. I will follow that up with a written report, but I would still be sharing this orally with everyone because we had a workshop meeting or a work session for our July meeting, and we got down into the weeds of the implementation and how this is going to happen. So I'll remind everyone, we produced this tome of climate action and adaptation plan. It contains, in addition to the history and the sort of overview of what we see happening, it contains 23 objectives of things we want to do by 2050. These are smaller objectives than the larger objective of reducing X number of greenhouse gases. And then there are specific action items that are connected with each of those objectives. The objectives and action items are divided into 6 areas, which I'm sure you all have memorized because you read this thing daily. And I will say I read this thing probably several times a month, and I'm still learning things out of it. So the subject areas are energy and buildings, renewable energy, sustainable transportation, solid waste, land management, and clean and healthy water. So like any good plan, the devil's in the details, and not just in getting detailed information below the detail that is suggested in here, but also in the procedure, how we are going to go about getting a list of actions that we're going to do and divvying them up. And it's something that we'll probably end up talking to Doug about. Pam Adams, I don't know if she's reached out to you yet, but she will. We're hoping to get her in to run through the broad plan. So what we have and what Pam Adams, who is the sustainability planner, have as a tool right now is a spreadsheet, which is a distillation of these objectives and actions that are in the plan. And the spreadsheet then has a column for every municipality and other entity like the school district and some of the authorities. And I wanted to give a couple of examples because it's something that I hope that as we go through the next several years, we're all going to just, include this in our lens and our way of looking at the program plan, capital improvement plan, and so on. And a good example of what came across our desk today was the sidewalk. One of the objectives is to make this a more walkable community. Okay. We're doing it, but not with the sidewalk that was originally proposed going down Valley Vista and so on. But I wanted to give a couple of examples here. So there is one objective in the plan that is to reduce the number of trips with one driver. So that's sort of an overarching objective, and that's pretty broad and pretty, squishy. It's like, how do we do that? And we can't make people, we just can't do that. Even if we were allowed to, it wouldn't happen, right? So one of the actions suggested in here is to implement recommendations to achieve the gold level of certificate as a bicycle-friendly community. So Susan Wheeler, the projects director, or projects manager, is that her title?
Project manager, yeah.
She, even without the climate action plan, took it upon herself to put Patton through the rigors of, or jump through the hoops to see if we could get one of the medal levels of the bicycle-friendly community. It turns out we're at the brass level. So one of the stated goals here is to get us to the silver level. I happened to talk to Susan yesterday. She gave me the American Wheelmen who have put together this bicycle-friendly set of objectives. It was condensed into this, or summarized in this handy-dandy little chart of different building areas that you can work on. We talked about one tonight, parking, bicycle racks, other things we didn't talk about, lighting bicycle paths on secondary roads or less than arterial roads, or arterial, I can't remember what it is, but there's a checklist of things we can do. So the question then is, does the board give the directive to Susan Wheeler to do this? Does Pam Adams talk to Doug? Do I assume a little responsibility as the chair of the committee, or as the committee member on the climate action and sustainability committee? How do these things get done? So it's not just deciding what to do, but if we do it, who's going to do it? Of course, how we're going to pay for it. And it's just going to be a slog. So,
I mean, is the issue to who's going to update the spreadsheet, or who's going to implement what?
There's that along with. Yeah.
Well, I think if there's projects to be implemented, those are the things that need to be put together and put into the CI, into the capital improvement plan.
Right, but yes, but so all I'm saying is that the committee and Pam is working with this matrix that then is going to come somehow to the township, and we will discuss. So yeah, it'll get there, but how do we decide?
Well, I think at this point, I mean, why don't you have Pam reach out to me?
Okay.
And then I can work with Pam to make sure that, we'll look over what she has down for Patton Township and see where we're at, what projects we've done, or what, or what goals we've accomplished or met, and what needs to be. And then I think, a normal process would be from that matrix, identify the, quite frankly, you'd identify all the things that you haven't finished yet. Go through a process of prioritizing those.
Yeah.
And then figure out what really, take your top priority ones and figure out what they might cost, or, the top half or something, and figure out, put some cost to those, reprioritize as needed. Put those into the CIP, run through the CIP process, and then they can go into budgets to, so I think, that'd be the way. First, have Pam approach me, and somebody will have to then put that report together about, what are the things left to do.
Right.
And then that gives the board something to look at to start figuring out, what's the top priorities.
If Betsy has enough time, since she is the chair for climate action, would she be involved with the collaboration between you and Pam?
Well, Pam and I are working out a lot of
Yeah,
the details. I work pretty closely with Pam on a lot of the issues that are not necessarily my job description or her job description. We're kind of figuring.
But I mean, at this point, it's just a matter of we've done this or we haven't done this. And if we haven't done it, is it something we're working on, or something we haven't even started yet? So,
Okay.
you know, and then at that point, all the things that we haven't done become the list of things that the board can decide whether you want to do those or not.
Okay,
And that's a board decision.
okay,
this
trying to
board-
give you more hands.
This board will be aided by a group that Pam is working with called the Implementation Technical Advisory Group, or the ITAG.
Right, I remember.
And they will be making suggestions. So they'll have this Excel file, and we'll be looking at various studies and.
Okay.
Well, yeah, I mean, you can get input on priorities from several different people, but ultimately, it's the board's responsibility to
Come up with it.
determine what,
Right.
you know, what do you want to do in 2023, what do you want to do in
Exactly.
2024?
Exactly.
Obviously, you can't do everything in 1 year, so,
Well,
you know, no matter what, it's going to be stretched out over several years.
So it's setting priorities of, you know, what's having the greatest impact, but also what we can afford.
Okay,
And between different options, you know, which of the options are going to get the best results. So it's going to be a project. So anyway, I thank you for that, that time for discussion. And we'll
Okay.
probably have Pam in to give an overview, and I'll just let her know that we talked about this, you reach out.
Yeah,
to
just
her.
have her reach out to me, and I'll set something up.
Great.
I mean, I looked at the matrix real fast, but I need Pam to probably provide a little more explanation and background on some of the issues.
Yeah, great.
okay, thank you. Now, moving on, next on the agenda is other business.
Oh, I had one other.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go
No,
ahead.
that's right, one other thing to report, that I just need to find. And this is from the solar power purchase agreement, which is scheduled to meet next week, but that was canceled, but I'm going to give you an update because it's pretty exciting. I believe there are 13 members in the solar power purchase agreement currently. We've named various times, but the working group was recently contacted by 3 other entities that are very interested, and this would be a very big inclusion or impactful inclusion to the power purchase agreement. Those would be Bellefonte Borough, the Bellefonte Authority, and the Center County Airport Authority. So they are all considering joining the SPPA. That, and we, the SPPA has agreed to allow them to be considered. It's going to push back the timeline a little bit, but we believe that the benefits will be outweigh any inconvenience of
Okay,
compromising the timeline. So it's very exciting. Thank you. That's it.
all right. All right, moving along on other business. Doug, is there any other business for you?
No, ma'am.
Any other business for, the only other business I would like to say at this time, thanks to CNET, and happy birthday, Matt. All right, next thing on the item is, can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Can I get a second? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I would like to thank everyone.